here in Africa. You saw the young man. Yes, and the old horse. And somebody was telling me at ministry, what do they call it? Court of Appeal, and said, they have rigged that young man out and that kind of a thing. I said, they don't need to rig him out. I said, he has caught enough vote to send the right message that, yes, to the political establishment. But definitely I was not expecting him to win. That is because the political system in Uganda is entrenched. The national, what do you call it? The National Revolutionary Movement of, or what they call it, is as old as the man on the throne. And it has its structure down to the grassroots established. Everybody that wants to get into government always line, and even the youth movement, the National Youth Council of Uganda and the rest of it, all of them were tailored into that political systems. So they have a formidable youth movement in the NRM and that kind of a thing. So for you to come, you will have, what the young man enjoy is the youth patronage, admirations of the youths, and things of that nature. But unfortunately, there was no political structure that is formidable enough to deliver it to him. Those are the things people should take into consideration when you are examining a political win and a political loss.
Okay, now, coming back to Joe Biden now, let's start to look at it from the standpoint of the world. We pray we're able to have chance. If we don't have chance, the next guest will narrow it to Africa. Looking at it from the standpoint of the world now, when Donald Trump was leaving, he gave a speech and talked about what he have done in the Middle East, how we have gone and how he have fared and all of that here. Now, Joe Biden is coming on board now, and the world is watching very clearly. The Middle East is actually watching very keenly. We saw Russia is watching very keenly. The Southern American part are also watching very keenly. Africa is also watching, and China is also watching, and everyone is watching. Now, from the standpoint of, let's even start from the ally first. Let's start from the ally of America, the UK, the Australia, and several others here. Do you see Joe Biden is able to bring back the ally? Because what we saw in Trump is the ally themselves were put on the heat.
That is why I said it will be a Herculean task for Joe Biden, but being a man of the system, and he understands the dynamic of the American politics, I expected him to be able to galvanize the world, particularly on the areas of his allies. Okay. The allies were so disenchanted with Trump, particularly Germany and France and some others like that. Trump, in his own case, treated the allies as if they are part of the adversaries. And even the NATO, they became at a point disenchanted. South Korea and all of those countries like that, they were no longer enjoying the cordial relationship that they usually had with Americans. So one would have expected that the presidency of Joe Biden will try to ignite a new or generate a new confidence among the allies first, and reach out to the global community that they can work more in areas of cooperations rather than competitions. And that is what China, Russia, and the rest of them will be expecting to see from Joe Biden.
But what about the issue where President Trump had talked about America first? Everything is about America, about economy, about not spending too much with the ally when it comes to the issue of possible threat, likely posed by China, likely posed by Russia. But he have encouraged, tell the ally that he will not be spending money. Are we going to see Biden spending more on actually assuring the allies of security?
Well, that has been the path that the Democrat had. America is practicing a degree of global exceptionalism. But in the areas of cooperations with allies, one will actually expect that America will continue to pick the bills of most of their allies in the areas of defense system, which Trump tried to say, look, you have to pay for it. You have to pay for it. But there had never been a free lunch in America's relationship with its allies. Whether they know it or not, it is probably the fact that Trump got to bring those things out in a more rude form rather than the diplomatic form it used to take, because there is no way America can station such large armies in the name of defense corporations in places like South Korea and the NATO allies without having some certain benefit accruing to the American nation. But the fact that Trump put it in a more crude manner to say, you will have to pay for everything and things of that nature, and sometimes we even use abusive language while communicating that. Those are the things that I think we will expect some better finance. You know, the world is about diplomacy. In a diplomatic cycle, you can tell somebody to lie down in the mud, and he will be rolling with joy in the mud because of the way you make the placement of utterances and the way you lay it out. And if you get it wrong and you decided to abuse diplomacy and that kind of a thing, and you write roughshod, then you will have a backslash.
Okay, if we look at it from another perspective here, let's try to narrow it down to the issue of China. That's one area where Trump actually had a long trade war with China that lasted almost throughout the period here. The question is, are we going to see Biden coming out from that angle of purely business relationship here? We put whatever we have aside here and we look purely on the issues of dealing with China, not just as a fellow global power in the G5 here, but dealing with China from the point that China is actually taking jobs overseas.
The truth of the matter is that in the world economic practices, neither United States nor China can do without one another. So what will be necessary within these two economic power would be to cultivate a better understanding, knowing what to refuse from one another and knowing what to accept. But in doing that, a finance in the practices of diplomacy must be employed. None of the two countries can do without one another.
Okay, but while we do all of this here, several relationships have been severed. Particularly with China, some parts have been severed. They've gotten to so many. They've crossed the the business red lines here. Can Biden actually mend those fences quickly?
It depends on what the China wants and what the United States wants. Okay. If they know that, just like I said, none of the two countries can do without one another in the global stage, they will always have a ground for cooperation. And whenever they have a ground for antagonism, it will also be in the best interest of global community that they reconcile it in such a way that will not threaten global peace and global economy. Because when China sneezes, the global economy will tremble. When United States sneezes, the global economy will tremble. So it will be more of a cooperation that can lead to a better economic world order rather than antagonism. They can achieve this if they treat themselves with mutual understanding, mutual respect, and mutual cooperation.
What about U.S.-Russia relationship here? It's like Trump appeared to have enjoyed the best with Russia throughout the period pre- and post-election. He appears to be a Russia man, according to what somebody posted here. Are we going to see Biden towing that line?
Well, Russia suffered a lot of, don't forget, Russia suffered a lot of sanctions from Trump too. And that being that, Russia will have an expectation to want to probably see a more friendly presidency of America towards Russia, a more cooperation that will be based on mutual respect and mutual trust. That is what those two powers we expect from one another. But that being said, Russia itself though not a paramount economic power, but a great power militarily, there will always be the need and necessity to cooperate. And you want to also know that Russia and China have their own economic bloc, the BRICS, and the Asian economic cooperations operating under their banner and things of that nature. So with all of that put together, it will be China, Russia, United States watching each other like an eagle, and we want to see what Joe Biden will come on board with.
Okay, now, as our time flies, the Middle East is one key area that the world will be watching very clearly. Some believe that Donald Trump really tried in the Middle East, trying to reconcile Israel with long-time neighbors, long-time long-time enemies in the region, like United Arab Emirates, some other countries here. But some believe he made extreme mistake when it comes to the issue of Iran with the assassination of Soleimani. But he said that was one of his biggest success stories in the speech he gave here, that he actually brought out Soleimani and executed him. And I killed him, sorry, because he was killing people. But in all of this now, let's look at the Middle East.
In the Middle East, well, he attributed some gains to himself in the areas of reconciliations of some Arabian countries with the Israel. But I think those reconciliations are superfluous. They are not original, and they are unsustainable. I have been saying that from the onset. They are unsustainable because they are done with so much, lobbyist approach. Lobbyist approach in such a manner that the rulers of those kingdoms that were reconciled and the rest of it were running against the masses of their people in taking such decisions. And those rulers might probably have taken those decisions and allowed themselves to be pushed into it, hoping that Trump will have the second term. Now that Trump is not having the second term. Then when you look at Iran, it was a strategic blunder. And it actually demystified United States. Today, United States is no longer having a strong foothold on Iraq as it used to be as a result of the assassination of Soleimani. Soleimani is reputed to be one of the most potent force. Even some American senators, they said it inside their Congress, that this is the most potent force against terrorism in the Middle East. And Trump coming out boldly to say, I took him out. And knowing Iran for what they are, an enduring power, they will want to also have their vengeance. And Iran, whenever you talk about Iran, you are not talking about a single nation standing on the confine of his sovereignty. You are talking about a nation that has frontiers of war spread in almost about 4 segments that can be galvanized against any. So it is a potent force. Okay. So
thank you very much, Honorable Attah. Sorry we couldn't narrow the conversation to Africa, but we thank you very much. We'll watch how the world unfolds. Thank you for having time to come. We believe that it will turn out well for Nigeria.
Well, I have always said it. We as a nation, the African, are looking up to Nigeria to navigate the African democratic experiments and the rest of it more better and more robustly. And with what happened in the United States, one will think that Nigeria will now see the necessity to continue to make use of the framework of African peer reviews mechanism to develop our democracy, knowing that democratic challenges are all over the world, but we can overcome it when we try to do the right thing through elite consensus.
Okay, thanks for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.